Dart skill presents addition of fractions. When two or more fractions are on the same denominator, let's say 5, and if you want to add them, you simply add the numerators and keep the same denominator on the answer. So the answer is going to be something over 5, and if required, you could simplify the final answer. So if we have a 1/5 plus 2/5, on the answer we do a 1 plus 2, and that is equal to 3/5. Similarly, if you wanted to add the fraction 3/10 to the fraction 5/10, you would do 3 plus 5 on the top and keep the same denominator, which is 8/10. And then if needed, you could simplify this fraction to its lowest term, meaning divide 8 and 10 with the greatest common factor, or GCF, which happens to be 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4, so we have a 4 on the top, and 10 divided by 2 is 5, so we have a 5 on the bottom. So 3/10 plus 5/10 is equal to 4/5. But then the obvious question is, how do you add two fractions that are on different denominators? For example, if you have 3/5 to be added to, let's say 1/10. If you do the same process and do a 3 plus 1 on the top, what do you do on the bottom? Do you write a 5 or do you write a 10? So this actually doesn't work now, because the two fractions are not on the same denominator, unlike the previous two examples. So the idea is to get these two denominators the same by finding their LCM and writing down both these fractions in their equivalent forms so that they are on the same denominator. The LCM of the denominators of these fractions are called the least common denominators, or the LCDs. The LCM of 5 and 10, the least common multiple, is 10 itself. Or we could also say the LCD, least common denominator, of 3/5 and 1/10, the two fractions this time, is 10. 10 is the common denominator. This fraction is already on something over 10, so we don't need to change that. And then how do we change 3/5 to something over 10? Simple. Multiply 5 with 2 to get a 10 over here, and if you do that, you got to do the multiplication on the numerator as well. So you have a 3 times 2, which is 6. 3/5 is equivalent, or is exactly the same fraction as 6/10. So you could as well use 6/10 in place of 3/5. 6/10 plus 1/10 is equal to, now they're on the same denominator, so we could do a 6 plus 1 on the top and keep the same denominator. Therefore, this is 7/10. 3/5 plus 1/10 is 7/10. Similarly, if you want to do 1/3 plus 1/2, the two denominators are not the same, but the least common multiple of 3 and 2 is 6. So we say the least common denominator, the LCD of the two fractions of 1/3 and 1/2, is 6. 3 times 2 is 6, so you multiply the numerator and the denominator of this fraction with 2. And similarly, 2 times 3 is 6, so you times this with 3. And that changes 1/3 to 2 over 6 plus 1/2 to 3 over 6. And then the two fractions are on the same denominator, 6. You could do a 2 plus 3 on the top and a 6 on the bottom, so this is 5/6. Let's now try and add 2/3 with 1/9. The denominators are not the same, and the LCM of 3 and 9, the least common multiple, is 9 itself. 9 times 1 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. Therefore, you want to multiply this with 3 and this with 3, but keep the 9 unchanged. So the first fraction changes to its equivalent form, 6 over 9, plus the second fraction is still 1/9. So the answer is 6 plus 1 on the top, 9 on the bottom. That's 7 nines.